Next up, Brian Beirne, Mr. Rock and Roll, longtime midday announcer at K-Earth 101 in Los Angeles. Talk about your days at K-Earth.
Oh, it was wonderful. You know, when I got to K-Earth, I think there were about 8 or 9 cars in the parking lot. There was a very small staff, but we were on a mission, and RKO was on a mission to make this a successful radio station. It had been an automated station, this KHJ-FM, and then they stayed automated. We worked into semi-automation, and then eventually live. A lot of great talents that came through there. Some people with a short stay, and fortunately I had the long stay.
Absolutely.
It was wonderful to work with the real Don Steele, Robert W. Morgan, Johnny Hayes. We had a lot of fun.
By the way, you were my competition for a little while. I was middays in the late 1980s for a couple of years at K-Surf 103.1, and you were middays at K-Earth, and we were. You of course won out, of course, but but it was neat. You know, you were a competitor, and it was. I would listen to you quite frequently, and always enjoyed what you did. Now, you left K-Earth in 2004. What happened there?
Well, everything has its run, and I had done radio for over 40 years at that point. Radio, as you well know, Bob, has changed dramatically since the days that I got into radio, where we had freedom to do our radio show. I always recount the story of Alan Freed when he broke Lonely Teardrops with Jackie Wilson and played it 17 times in a row because the listeners kept calling in saying, "Play it again,
Lonely Teardrops."
So in the early days, we had just freedom to run our own show. By the time I retired, of course, it was really all about the stock price for the companies. The old days, everything was owned by mom and pop, and today it's owned by a few companies. So there is a lot of structure to it. Somebody hands you a playlist and says, "Don't talk for more than 12 seconds here." Well, fine, I have a 15-second story. Well, I can only talk for 12.
Wow.
Well, that doesn't get the job done.
Sure.
And especially for real radio talent that, communication is what it's all about, and that's communicating with the listener. And when you have, structure is all well and good and so is research to a point. And then there is getting the job done and relating to the listener. We have gotten away from that drastically. In the effort to maximize yet minimize everything, we've killed the golden goose, and we've structured talent to the point where it can't be talent anymore.
Why are they doing that?
Everything in the world is about money. I don't care what business it is. Certainly, it's a lot cheaper to run a syndicated show than to have you in there paying you a salary and pension and welfare and all of that. So a lot of it has to do with economics. There was that nasty word that came into our business, Bob, years ago called research. And the research, no matter what business it is that you're doing, is a tool. For some companies and some people, it became the Bible. We can't play a record if it doesn't test 74.5. Well, yes, but this is a record that your audience loves, and it only tests 70.3. Well, we can't play it. That's not going by gut. That's structuring yourself to the point where you've disregarded the listener. And then you test records, and let's say Jailhouse Rock, for instance, comes in and tests a 95. And then the boss looks at you and says, well, I'm not going to play it. Well, why? You said if it's got to test 73.4. Well, I don't know, it doesn't fit. Well, it doesn't fit, but that test proves that that's what your listener wants to hear.
Sure.
So many great people that I've had a chance to work with over the years and know, the Righteous Brothers, Bobby Darin, Sinatra. There were just so many great people.
Did you ever meet Frank Sinatra?
I saw Frank 22 times.
Oh, wow.
I used to take my wife all the time, and I'd always take her for her birthday, because Frank was always appearing in Vegas on her birthday weekend, and I would make sure that her arm was on the stage, center table, for her birthday. And he came over one night and shook her hand on her birthday. Frank would not shake men's hands. Now, pretty ladies, he would go over and, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I was there the only night that Frank ever did an encore. And I used to see Frank, as I said, periodically, and I got a table up front, brought in my old television producer from Channel 11, and my agent, and my best friend, and everybody flew in to meet us in Vegas. My wife and I had seen Frank the night before, and the interesting thing about Frank was different every time that you saw him. And and that's what was really great about watching Sinatra. And he was, I'd have to we're not talking rock and roll here, but if I was to talk an entertainer beside Elvis of this last century, it would be Sinatra. Frank was never the same 2 nights in a row. All depended on his mood, the Jack Daniels, how many pals were around, and just
Rat Pack and everything,
and how he felt. You could watch him, and those of us who would sit close, you could watch his eyes, and you could tell by what he opened with "Come Fly With Me." Am I going to do a 40-minute show tonight, or am I going to do an hour show? And you could tell when he'd hit those first notes and the look in his eye, and if he had it, boy, he was on a roll. But you could also watch Sinatra as he would interpret these songs differently every night. Whether it was maybe a night that he'd had an extra Jack Daniels, and he was thinking back to Ava Gardner, thinking back to some other point in his life, as maybe he sang "Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered." And you could watch him and watch his expressions as he floated away to some other place. So it was different each time. Well, this particular night, and we'd seen him the night before, and Frank was good, but not like this night. This night, we watched him, and you could see the magic in his eyes, like, God, man.
Where was he performing this night?
I think this was Bally's.
Okay.
And we didn't know it at the time, but this was his last night at the casino. His contract was up.
Okay.
Closed the curtains, and he was marvelous. The lights went on. People started to get up and leave. And you heard Frank in the back, "Open the damn curtain."
I'm ready for more.
Walked out, told the band, he said, "Sit down." He said, "Where are you people going?" "Somebody get me a drink." He did another 25 minutes taking requests.
How about that?
Sinatra never did an encore. Elvis didn't do encores, and Frank didn't do encores.
Did he sing "It Was a Very Good Year"? I hope. That's my favorite Sinatra record.
He may have. It was just marvelous. And we're sitting there calling out songs, and he'd look at his son was leading the band. He said, "Junior, do we have that?" Yeah, we got that. He said, "All right, let's try it."
Cool.
And it was just, it was marvelous.